Hi, and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Illustrator by Eduonics Technologies. In this lecture, we're going to start talking about actually creating objects in Illustrator. In this first part, we're going to be focusing on basic shapes. As you remember from previous sections, we're going to set up a new document. I wanted to change it up, so we're going to be working in a RGB color space at screen resolution. Although you won't be able to tell, it's just nice to be able to remember certain things. So set up a new document if you haven't already. I've already mentioned a few times that you can change these units by right-clicking on the ruler tool. So I'm going to title this Shapes, and I have new settings and everything. So I'm going to click OK, and we're going to get into it. So shapes are what makes Illustrator what it is. And there's a number of ways to draw on. There's a basic shapes tool, which at first seems a little bit simple and like you wouldn't use it, because most shapes that we use in the end aren't a simple ellipse or a simple rectangle, and they're not a six-sided polygon. There is an immense amount of things you can do with these shapes, aside from what you see right here. In this video, we're only going to be going into how you can edit each one of these particular shapes to change its properties as you're creating it. However, you can combine these shapes in a number of different ways to create anything you want, and we'll go into that in the video concerning Pathfinder. In this video, we're going to focus on shapes. So first off, I have my rectangle tool selected. It's the default tool. Now if I drag a rectangle out, I can see the width and height, and I notice it's not even. So one of the first things you want to learn about shapes is that holding down Shift when dragging out any shape will make it equal on all sides. If it's a circle, it'll be a perfect circle and not an oval. If it's a polygon, the polygon will have the same size for every side. If it's a star, the star will not be scrunched in or scrunched up and down. So holding in Shift, as you can see, it makes this into a square instead of a rectangle, no matter where my cursor goes. Let's see what that's like with some of the other tools. So without holding Shift, I can make this polygon do whatever I want. Another important thing to note is that when you hit Shift in the middle, it'll snap to the nearest angle defined in the preferences. If you remember, it's called the constraint angle. If I go up to preferences, it's under general. You can also hit Control K or Command K. I'd set mine to 10 degrees previously. Let's set it to 45 degrees. Don't worry about the degree sign, it'll put that in for you. Hit OK. As you can see, it's turning this in increments of 45 degrees. That's kind of hard to see with the polygon tool. So let's see with the square tool. And remember again, I'm holding in Shift as I'm transforming it. Also, to transform a shape, you hit the shortcut key E. Also, you can just go over here Although it's changing right now, it's just doing that to look nice. It's all going to rotate if you're holding it outside. And remember, this is with transform activated, shortcut key E. So if you start rotating this, it'll rotate. And if you start rotating this while holding in shift, it'll rotate according to the constraint angle, which is 45 degrees like we just set up. Anyway, back into the shapes themselves. I've created a simple square. And now I'm going to create an ellipse. What you're noticing right now, I'm sure you already realize that I'm holding in shift. But when I hit Alt, it changes the orientation of the ellipse. Now it's coming out from the center of where I clicked. So let's undo, and let's hold in Alt without shift, creating an ellipse from the corner of this square. As you can see, we are over the anchor. Smart guides tell us that. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to press Alt. As you can see, no matter what I do, it's centered on the square. When I hold in shift, it creates an equidistant circle centered on the square, or an exact circle. So there you have that, Alt and shift. The same is true with the rectangle tool. And because I set my constraint proportions to 45 degrees, it'll start rectangles out at 45 degrees. So let's set that back. Of course, you can always simply press E, shift, and rotate your rectangle back to normal. Now if I set the constraint angle to 0, it'll still be 45 degrees because that's the default rotation. So just like with the circle tool, when you hold in Alt, it changes it to center orientation of where you clicked. So I'm holding in Alt and Shift right now as I drag this out. Now I'm letting go of Shift. Now I'm holding in Shift again and letting go of Alt. I can just position it in different places. So experiment on this with the shape tools. Experiment on holding in Shift and holding in Alt. Because you want to get that down, we're going to be going into more advanced tools. Assuming you do have that down, let's take a look at the star tool. Say I want a star centered right here on the circle. As you can see by my smart guides, it says intersect. It might be hard to see, but it says intersect right above my cursor. It's also lined up with the center. That little thing points to the center. Usually it goes all the way up, the little green line, but you can tell that you're on the actual anchor. So I can start creating a star here. Alt has a different function when you're creating a star. And stars might not seem that useful at first, but you'll see. If I hold Shift in, first of all, it holds the star upright, as you would imagine. If I let go of Shift, the star moves around freely. If I hold in Control and expand the star, I'm going to hit Shift too. You can see what's happening here. Also, if I let go of Control, it stays the way it is. So really you have to play around with that to get the handle of it. But that can be very useful if I want to separate this circle into a bunch of chunks, equal chunks. Now normally I would just draw a line and turn it sideways, and then draw another vertical line. But this can be used for a quick effect. We're going to click, we're going to hit Control, and we're going to start our drag. We can let go of Control at this point. Say you're making a graphic of pizza or something, this would be what you would do. You can separate circles and shapes and whatever else you want into as many pieces as you want. I'm holding in Shift right now to keep it straight. You probably have a Shift key on the other side of your keyboard, so hit that one. Hit the one on the right side, and then hit the up arrow. Hit the down arrow. So this is an incredibly useful tool when we use it like this. However, I want to stress that it's not perfect. If I zoom in, I did a good job of not moving my mouse as soon as I clicked it. Same thing, basic star tool, I'm just going to click, and remember I don't have to be exactly centered on it. As long as it says center in my smart guides, which once again you might not be able to see, but it says that right above the cursor. As long as it says center, I just click, and it's automatically centered. And since this is a star tool, like the circle tool, it comes out from all directions. So as long as I start it off right where I click, I'll get these rays as you see here, and they'll bisect the circle. I can press up and down and get a different amount of rays. And when I let go of the mouse, it's set, and I'm just going to take these two, select them all. You don't have to select all the anchor points, and I'll go up to Pathfinder, Shift Control F9, the shortcut. You saw that. I'm just going to hit divide, and it'll cut them into slices, as you can see. And I can just move them around like this. As you can imagine, this is useful for a number of things. You want to do a half of a sun coming up over some mountains, and, pizza, obviously. Any kind of pie chart, although Illustrator does have a chart function that we're not going too in-depth into. So with any of these, if I just click, it'll bring up a dialog. I can enter in the coordinates or the dimensions for whether it's an ellipse or a polygon, and just hit OK, and it'll, in this case, create an ellipse that's 8 inches wide, 8 inches high, so it's going to be circular. And this is true for all of them, all the shapes. So if you go over here in the info panel, you can see the dimensions for the shape that you just created or the one that you have selected. You can change it in the transform panel. I use the transform panel to actually check the stats of the shape if I'm not using the control panel above. So let's just select a different shape here, rectangle, and as you can see, it's width and height again. Star gives you some different options, as does flare and the other choices you have. And aside from using the transform panel to get your dimensions, you can use the rulers as I was doing and just see what the smart guides, when they lock in, you'll see the little mark on the ruler above. But essentially that's how the basic shapes work, and they can be combined with Pathfinder
like you saw me do a second ago. So aside from that, just watch the rest of the shapes videos and just practice on this one point. Try to make new shapes and combining them, although we do go into Pathfinder in more detail. Practice it now and you'll have a little jump start on it when you're using it in the subsequent tutorials. Thanks for watching.